Hey there, everybody. This is just a quick video letting you know that I have released files for a homemade uh, 3D model of the 1995 Kenner Crossbow. This has been hand modeled by me, and I have been taking measurements from my crossbow that I own. I actually own three. Here you can hear the crossbow sounds. Creaky. The crossbow is almost a 30-year-old blaster now, and honestly, it's better to print one than to modify an original at this point. So I decided to make my old 1995 crossbow model more accurate. Previously, I did a version of the 95 crossbow as a 3D model, which was based off of some work that Captain Slug did. He had a 3D scan of a crossbow, and I think that his scan he got from Lucian on Nerf Haven, but it's been a while. Don't quote me on that, but Captain Slug had a model of a crossbow, and a few years ago I did some changes to it to make it more accurate. It still wasn't quite there in terms of accuracy. There were a ton of issues with it that weren't quite the way that I wanted them to be. Lots of messy modeling left over from Slug's work, which makes sense. It was a very old model, but yeah, stuff like that, where like the circles weren't round, they were a series of jagged lines in a circular shape, stuff like that. So recently, about I don't know, 5 days ago, I decided to take that model that I had improved. Sorry about that alarm on my phone. I decided to take that model that I improved and improve it more. Basically, redo a ton of things about it that were annoying me. So stuff like this curve here on the trigger guard being a really funky curve where it curves both from the top down and from the side like that, and then more curving right here. That in the original model was just a straight across, down, over, back up, across. It was super flat lined and angular. So I spent a day making the trigger guard nice and smooth, and another day making this little scallop in the grip correct to the crossbow that I own. Same with all these little details, all these little holes in all these bits. Completely remodeled this area here to be the correct kind of scooped out shape. Redid these holes. Remodeled, or modeled from scratch actually, this priming handle for the crossbow, complete with all the little injection molding, little nooks and crannies, and all these little shapes here. Everything is accurate on that, with measurements both from a picture reference and from a pair of calipers on my crossbows. Redid the buttstock curves to be more accurate, and the width of the stock. Something that most people don't notice is that the width of the stock up here is actually wider than the width of the stock in the back. And then it has this sort of dipped middle section to bridge the gap in between those two distances, or in between those two thicknesses. So I have accurately recreated that as well. I went ahead and cleaned up all these little viewing slots up here to have the correct amount of fillet and deepness. In the original crossbow, these go all the way through, but they're covered by the plunger tube in there, so it kind of looks... I went for something that looks the same rather than being the exact same model, because that would mean that all the middle of this would need to be hollow, which it isn't. All the middle of this is mostly solid. And I would be able to show you that like this. As you can see, mostly solid in there. I redid these little, eyelets for the viewing slots into the plunger tube. I got a plunger tube that is the correct diameter. I made this little thingy up here the correct shape. It's not quite fully round in the real crossbow. It has this little flat area on top, and it's not quite fully cylindrical to the end, so I got this little dip in it. This has a correct rounding now. Just so many small tweaks to make this as close as I can get it with my current 3D modeling skills. There's a few tiny bits that are not quite 100% accurate, but basically no one's going to notice, like the handguard up here being slightly wonky with these little wiggly bits. In the original, they're not sort of wiggly like that. They're the shape of the handguard continues across, and then there's slots cut into it, as opposed to there being a wiggly section in the middle of the shape of the handguard. But honestly, it's close enough. Redid the trigger completely from scratch, complete with the little tiny details of these little dots on the back, or not dots, little lines on the back. Yeah, tons and tons and tons of changes on this to make it as accurate as I can get it. And then I have made this file public. You can go and download this file. You can download the source file in F3D or STEP, depending on what CAD software you want to use it in, or you can download an STL of this whole thing. It is one solid model. There's not separate parts to it. And I did that because if you're going to be doing anything with this model anyway, you're going to want to slice it up in your own specific way. In order to take an injection molded organic shaped design, like the 95 Crossbow, and print it, requires a lot of work. And depending on what you're doing with the blaster, like putting a fly core in it, or making it a homemade with a I don't know, a spring-based blaster, or if you're just, I don't know, printing out a fully solid model just to look at on your wall or something like that, room art, I guess. Whatever you're using it for is going to drastically change how you're going to need to split it up to actually make it in the real world. So instead of sacrificing some of the realistic measurements in order to make this printable from the start, I'm just going to let other people do that and keep as much of the realistic shapes as I can. So this is as real a model of a 95 Crossbow as I could make. Files are released for free, online, open source. I'll put the link to the GitHub repository in the video description. You can go and download this and modify it and do basically whatever you want. If you do use this model in any of your designs, I would appreciate credit for the original model. But other than that, go ham. If you want to, I don't know, make a double-barreled crossbow and cut this in half and make it wider, you can do that. If you want to make it a fly core with a flywheel, you can do that too. If you want to make an HPA blaster, you can stick an air tank back here, maybe a hopper, put the air tank in the back here, or I don't know, like a reservoir back here. You could do that too. Anything that you want to do with this, go ham. But now you have the ability to actually go and do that much easier. So yeah, if you want a realistic, accurate 1995 Crossbow 3D model, go to the video description, download the model, and have some fun with it. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for you today. Go download the model and have some fun. All right. That's all I've got. Bye. I suck at outros.